Hello world, it is Wednesday, February 10th, and it's an overcast morning this morning, and I think relatively cold. I think it was in the low teens this morning. I think I may have forgotten to look. I don't remember if I looked or not. But yesterday it was in the teens, but then later in the day it got to be bright sunshine, so maybe there's still hope. Don't lose hope. Today's devotion is entitled Foundations Sure to Falter, written by Kenneth Samuel. And Kenneth bases his devotion upon Psalm 102, verse 25 through 26a, the New Living Translation. Long ago you laid the foundation of the earth and made the heavens with your hands. They will perish, but you remain forever. And Kenneth writes, some people from the West Coast wonder how those of us on the East Coast live with the annual threats of hurricanes and floods. And some of us on the East Coast wonder how our West Coast siblings live with periodic threats of earthquakes and mudslides. Whether we face ravaging winds and water, or whether we stand upon a terra firma that's not so firm, cataclysmic shifts of the earth and its environment shake us to our very core. We base so much of our lives upon the natural order of manageable wind and contained water and solid ground. When nature takes a drastic turn from these dependable norms, everything standing on those norms is placed in jeopardy. The very foundations of nature set in place by God are themselves erratic. To be oblivious to this truth is to remain acutely vulnerable and woefully unprepared for the tumultuous, quote-unquote, acts of God. Surely nature's foundations are not the only ones that rattle and unsettle us. We've almost drowned in a deluge of racial reckoning. The ferocious winds of a deadly pandemic have blown us to new breaking points. Virulent political strife has shaken the very foundations of our democratic institutions. It is precisely in times like these that faith looks beyond the instabilities of creation toward the utter faithfulness of the Creator. God has created nothing more steadfastly dependable than God's own self. Beyond the wanton passions, perils, and pandemics of life, there is a perfect peace that passes understanding. That's Samuel's prayer. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. And that's from Edward Mote's My Hope is Built on Nothing Else. Amen. Life has always been filled with tumultuous events and cataclysms and things. And we tend to forget about those when things are really good, and then they come crashing back on us. But they've always been there, and will always be there in one form or another. But I think this year has been especially tumultuous with all that has happened. As he mentioned, the racial reckoning, the deadly pandemic that's occurred, and the political strife that we're seeing here in the United States. And honestly, it's not just in the United States, but there's been a very strong right-wing movement across the whole, great portions of the world. And it is unsettling. But perhaps that's the time when we need to pause and consider creation and consider God and the surety we have in God's presence through it all. I'm not one that believes that God causes calamity, but I think when we look, we can find God's presence in the midst of it to help us get through it. Certainly. Because so much of what happens in the world seems like, well, there's a human touch involved somewhere in it. And to get through it, we need to look for the divine touch. I hope you can find the presence of God in your life today. Grab hold of that and focus on that to help it get through, may it help you get through whatever it is you may be facing this day. And maybe it's just something to rejoice in. So I hope you have a good day. I will talk to you again tomorrow.